You people never learn, do you? The cop sneered, his uniform shirt still wet with the dark stain of fresh coffee. The diner froze. Forks stopped midair, conversations cut off, and even the hum of the ceiling fan seemed suddenly louder. I turned toward the corner booth where a tall black man sat, one hand resting lightly on the table beside an empty mug. He looked up slowly, deliberately. His gaze wasn't sharp or angry, but steady, the kind of calm that could feel more dangerous than fury. "Officer," he said evenly, "you bumped into me." The words dropped into the silence like stones into water. The cop, Officer Randall Briggs, broad-shouldered with a buzz cut and permanent scowl, jabbed a thick finger toward the man's chest. His voice carried the edge of someone who lived, off intimidation. "Don't you dare talk back. I saw you do it. You knocked it over me on purpose." The man didn't move. His casual outfit, dark jeans, plain gray shirt, and a black jacket slung across the booth, made him look like just another patron. But something about the way he carried himself, straight-backed, unflinching, suggested there was more under the surface. "You shoved past me," he said calmly, "and spilled it yourself." Gasps rippled through the diner. A waitress froze, with a tray of pancakes hovering inches above a table. An older couple leaned in close, whispering. Briggs's jaw twitched, the red creeping higher on his neck. "You trying to be a smart guy? Think you're clever with that little notebook of yours?" he growled, pointing to the small black notepad resting on the table beside the mug. "I've had enough of your attitude. Stand. Up. Now." The man stayed seated. He slid his hand over the notebook protectively, tapping his finger once against the cover. "Careful," he said, his tone quiet but heavy with warning. "You don't want to do this." Briggs barked out a laugh that sounded more like a bark. "Oh, I do." He lunged, hand reaching for the man's arm. And then it happened. The stranger slid something across the table with 2 fingers. It glinted under the fluorescent lights. An FBI badge. The diner went still, like a photograph frozen mid-frame. Officer Briggs froze mid-grab. His hand hovered inches above the man's sleeve, eyes locked on the badge. His flush of anger drained to pale confusion, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. "Badge or no badge," he snapped, voice cracking. "You were resisting. That's obstruction." The man finally rose to his feet. In casual clothes, he didn't look like an agent, but when he stood, he carried a presence that filled the diner. His voice sliced through the room like a blade. "Obstruction?" he repeated. "Officer, you just assaulted a federal agent in front of 24 witnesses." The collective inhale of the crowd was loud, sharp. Briggs faltered. "That's not... I didn't..." The agent cut him off, his words now steel. "You shoved past me, you spilled your coffee, then you tried to twist it into a show of power, and now..." He tapped the badge once, the sound crisp on the table. "You've jeopardized an active federal operation." The waitress nearly dropped her tray. "Operation?" she whispered. The agent's gaze flicked her way, then settled back on Briggs. He didn't blink. "Yes," he said. "For 3 months. I've been tracking someone who comes into this diner every morning. Someone dangerous. Do you understand what you just risked?" The murmur of the diner grew into a buzz. The older couple gawked openly. A man in a baseball cap muttered, "Oh man, he's screwed." Briggs's swagger cracked, his voice stumbling over itself. I didn't know. You should have told me. How was I supposed..." The agent leaned forward, close enough that only Briggs could hear. His voice was low, deliberate. "You people never learn?" he said, echoing Briggs' earlier sneer back at him. His tone was razor-sharp. "No, officer, you never learn." The words landed like a blow. Briggs flinched, his bravado crumbling. For the first time that morning, he looked smaller than the man in front of him. The rest of the diner wasn't small anymore. Everyone was staring. A college kid near the window raised his phone, recording. A trucker in a ball cap shook his head. The waitress finally set down her tray, her hands trembling slightly. Briggs opened his mouth again, but nothing came out. The diner hung thick with tension, the air charged with something between outrage and awe. Briggs made one last, desperate attempt. "Look, I didn't mean it like that. Maybe I came on too strong, but—" The agent raised his hand, palm out. The movement was calm, deliberate, final. "This isn't about coffee," he said. His tone was quiet, but carried across the diner. "This is about power. You thought you could humiliate me in front of these people. But power without respect, without discipline, it collapses. Every time." His words rang in the stillness like a gavel strike. The waitress glanced at the old couple, who nodded as if the agent had spoken some universal truth. The college kid muttered, "Damn right," without lowering his phone. Briggs clenched his fists, then unclenched them. His jaw worked, but no words came. The agent gathered his notebook, slipped the badge back into his jacket pocket, and laid a few bills on the table. Then he turned to leave. At the door, he paused. He didn't look at Briggs, but his voice carried, clearly enough for everyone to hear. Not everyone is who you think they are. Sometimes the only thing standing between you and disaster is respect. Remember that. And then he stepped outside, the diner door swinging shut behind him. For a moment, the room remained silent. Then the waitress whispered the words everyone else had been thinking. "He just schooled you." Laughter rippled through the diner, followed by applause. Some clapped slowly, some enthusiastically, but all of it felt like a verdict. Briggs sat slumped in his chair, pale and sweating, stripped of the authority he had wielded so carelessly. But outside, the story wasn't quite over. The FBI agent didn't leave immediately. He crossed the street, leaned against a brick wall, and flipped open his notebook. A man he'd been tracking, a wiry figure in a leather jacket, had just pulled up in a beat-up sedan and was walking toward the diner. The agent's lips curved into a faint smile. Briggs, humiliated inside, didn't know it yet, but his blunder hadn't completely derailed the operation, because sometimes fate had a way of correcting mistakes, and sometimes the lesson wasn't just for the guilty cop. It was for everyone watching.